I want to start this video by asking you something, and I want you to actually pause and answer it. When was the last time you had a safe place to feel something? Not to fix it, not to push through it, not to perform your way around it, just to actually feel it. I'm guessing for many of you, that answer involves a long pause. Hey, I'm Amanda, registered nurse, single mom, and the face behind Holistically Blessed. And today we're going somewhere the wellness world doesn't always go. We're talking about emotional health. Not in a clinical distance, this is so important way. In the real honest, I've been here too way. Because I believe, and I'm going to give you the physiology to back it up, that your emotional health is not separate from your physical health. It is not a soft topic, a bonus round, or something you get to after you've handled the real wellness world. It is the health of the systems that run your entire body, and it deserves the same care and attention we've been given everything else this month. So let's get started. Let me give you the actual biology first, because I think understanding what's happening in your body helps remove the shame from what you might be feeling. When emotions are unprocessed, when they're pushed down, numbed out, or chronically ignored because there's no time or space, they don't disappear. They don't resolve themselves in the background while you get on with your day. The research tells us something very different. Chronic emotional suppression is associated with measurably elevated cortisol, with increased systematic inflammation, with disrupted immune function, with poor sleep architecture, with hyperactivation of the nervous system stretch response, which we talked so much about previously. There are two mechanisms I want to highlight specifically. The first is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the same HPA axis that manages your stress response. When you chronically suppress emotion, that system stays in a low-grade activation state. Your body is treating your unprocessed feelings as ongoing threat. The second is the gut-brain axis. Your gut has its own extensive nervous system filled with 5 million neurons, and it communicates directly with the brain via the vagus nerve. This is why anxiety lives in your stomach, why grief can make you feel physically nauseous, why the gut issues have no clear physical cause, often have everything to do with what you've been carrying emotionally. This is not, it's all in your head. This is neuroscience, immunology, and gastroenterology. Your emotions are in your body, and tending to them is physical health practice. I want to tell you what this looks like practically in our home with my boys. One of the most intentional things I do as their mom is refuse to let emotional suppression become the vocabulary of our home. My 16-year-old has gotten good at something over the last couple of years that I am genuinely proud of. He can say, sometimes in what seems like just a completely normal day, "Mom, I'm stressed about something, and I don't know what it is yet." That is emotional intelligence that took years to build, years of creating a home where naming your emotional state was allowed and even normal. He doesn't always want to talk about it. Sometimes he just wants us to drive around or have me sit near him while he works through it internally. But I've learned to let him lead that. My presence is the support, not my questions. My 9-year-old is much more expressive, which brings its own challenges. He will tell me exactly what he's overwhelmed or frustrated or sad, sometimes loudly, and sometimes with more drama than the situation technically warrants. But I try, even on my most tired days, to respond to what's underneath the behavior. Not just stop yelling, but I can see you're really upset. Let's figure out what's going on. Here's why I do this as a nurse and not just as a mom. Children who learn to name their emotions become adults who can manage them. Adults who can manage their emotions have measurably better health outcomes, better relationships, better stress resilience. What I'm doing in our home right now is a 20-year wellness intervention, and I believe that with everything I have. I want to be honest about my own side of this. I am not someone who grew up expressing big emotions. I just pushed them down deep and learned to perform functionally, to just keep moving, to be the strong one. And those coping strategies serve me in a lot of different ways, including nursing, where you have to function under pressure regardless of what you are personally feeling. but they also meant that I carried things for a long time that needed to be put down. Things I didn't process until my body forced me to, in the form of the burnout we talked about previously. What my emotional practice looks like now, and I want to be clear that it is practice, it is ongoing, it is not something I've arrived at, is a combination of things. Prayer that is honest rather than performed. Not, I'm grateful for all things when I'm not. More like, I'm exhausted and angry and I need you in this. And trusting that God can handle my honesty because He already knows it anyway. Journaling inconsistently but genuinely. Even just a few sentences that name what I'm actually feeling rather than what I think I should be feeling. And yes, the oils, which I'll talk about in a minute. They're not a cure for grief or anxiety or loneliness, but there is support for the nervous system while I'll do the harder emotional work. I am a work in progress, and that is, I think, exactly where I'm supposed to be. Let me talk about the oils I specifically use for emotional support, and let me be honest about what they do and don't do. Essential oils are not a substitute for processing emotion. They are not therapy. They are not a way to bypass the hard work of feeling things. What they can do, and what the research supports, is support the nervous system's physiological state while you do that work. They can make the body a slightly safer, more regulated container for the difficult emotional experience. With that said, here are the ones I reach for most. Adaptive is my first choice on days when I'm carrying something heavy. As we've talked about before, it's doTERRA's nervous system support blend, and I use it both topically on my wrist and diffuse in whatever room I'm spending time in. It doesn't fix what's hard. It creates a physiological environment where I'm a little more regulated and therefore a little more able to actually be present with what I'm feeling. Peace, doTERRA's reassuring blend, is what I reach for when anxiety is the primary emotion. It contains vetiver, lavender, ylang-ylang, frankincense, clary sage, marjoram, and spearmint. Vetiver particularly has interesting research for its grounding effects on the nervous system, and frankincense we've talked about extensively. For my 16-year-old, he's gotten to the point where he'll ask me for balance that he can apply to his wrist before something stressful. A hard conversation, an exam, a game where the stakes feel high. He doesn't think of it as emotional support oils. He thinks of it as just part of how he prepares himself. And honestly, that's exactly right. My 9-year-old will come to me when he's upset and ask for the calm oil, which in his case, usually lavender diluted in coconut oil applied to the back of his neck and his feet. He's learned that it's part of how we settle down in our house. And there's something beautiful about a 9-year-old self-advocating for his own regulation tools. I want to spend a few minutes on the faith piece, because I think the church has sometimes inadvertently contributed to emotional suppression rather than emotional health. And that is something I feel strongly about. The idea that strong faith means not struggling, that trusting God means not grieving or being anxious or feeling lost, that positive emotions are spiritual and difficult ones are a lack of faith. I do not believe that. John 11, verse 35, the shortest verse in the Bible, tells us that Jesus wept at the tomb of Lazarus, in front of people, before he performed a miracle. He didn't perform composure. He didn't theologically explain his way through it. He stood at the place of loss and he was fully moved, humanly. And I think that matters enormously for emotional health. If Jesus, who knew what was coming, who understood the Father's plan completely, still allowed himself to feel the weight of grief in that moment, then our emotions are not a failure of faith. They are an expression of being fully human in the way God made us. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Not after they pulled themselves together, not when they performed enough faith, close to the brokenhearted. Bring your honest feelings to God, not the cleaned up version, not the version you think you're supposed to have. Is not weakness. It is intimacy, and it is where real healing often begins. I promise you the one practice that has changed my emotional wellness more than anything else, and I want to give it to you before we close. It is this: an honest daily check-in with yourself, not a journaling practice that requires 30 minutes and the perfect notebook, not a meditation practice with an app and a scheduled time slot. Just once a day, somewhere in the natural rhythm of your day, asking yourself, what am I actually feeling right now? Not what am I performing, not what I should be feeling. What am I actually feeling? And then naming it out loud if you can, to yourself, to God, in a journal if you want, even just internally with honest and intention. Research on emotional labeling, a concept from effective neuroscience called affect labeling, shows that the act of naming an emotion in language measurably reduces its intensity. The prefrontal cortex becomes more active and the amygdala becomes less reactive. You literally regulate your nervous system by naming what you feel. This is ancient wisdom backed by modern neuroscience. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, who have been willing to name that they are brokenhearted. One honest check-in per day. That is my invitation to you this week. Try it for 7 days and notice what shifts. Thank you for being here for this one. I know it wasn't the lightest topic, and I'm grateful you stayed. If something in this video touched something real for you, please know you are not alone. And please know that what you're feeling is allowed. Your body knows it, your faith can hold it, and this community is here. If this video helped you, please hit that like button and subscribe. And leave me a comment below. I mean it when I say I read every single one. Tell me what resonated, or just drop a heart so I know you're here. If you know a woman who is carrying a lot quietly right now, share this with her. You never know what someone needs permission to feel. Links for everything mentioned are in the description box below. I'll see you next week. With grace and wellness always.